to Scoop City. We are now joined by the Athletic's Buffalo Bills beat reporter, Joe Buscaglia, who has covered this team for 15 seasons. He's 38 years old, so I feel like we need to preface it that way. 38, so almost half your life you've been covering the Bills at this point. So here we are now. We're getting ready for a really big matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs. Can you just tell me what the feel of the Buffalo Bills are this season?
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with how small the expectations were for the team heading in, both locally and nationally, quite honestly. Like, a lot of people expected this to just be a down year not really a down year, but maybe like a retooling year, because they fixed up a lot of their cap and all those issues. They try to get younger in some spots and develop in some areas, but the things that people did not expect to happen were the Jets to just go absolutely crazy off the rails. I guess they should have expected that. But also for Tua Tagovailoa to get hurt the way that he did against the Bills, that kind of tanked their season. So the division is an afterthought now, and now the vibes are in Buffalo are just high because no one really expected them to be this good this quickly. But yeah, comparing it to the last few years, it seems just a little bit more fresh in the locker room, in the building, and certainly a little bit different from what we have seen the last couple of years.
Well, I'm certainly guilty of being one of those people who was definitely underestimating this team.
Same.
And I was just doing it based on roster, things I knew, and I got a feeling too from just talking to people that this was going to. I love the word retool. That's what it felt like. It didn't feel like a completely rebuild. It felt like a retool. Plus, people hate saying just a rebuild. It feels so negative. And now here they are in a position where, with their record that they have right now, with Josh Allen under center, anytime the Bills are at this point, they're going to the AFC Championship game. That's how that works statistically for them. So I do think there's something to be said for the Bills not having as much pressure and as much of a target on their back like they have every year. I mean, the expectations have been through the roof every year. And now this was the one year where they got some relief. But with that said, all right, so I came across your article, which was really, really well done, where you were talking about the gap between Josh Allen's season, like the way it looks on the stat sheet, compared to the way he's actually playing. So what do you think you discovered most by kind of looking at Josh Allen through that lens?
Yeah, just to preface, a lot of my coverage is built around film study, and so I go back and I study the film after every single game. So, and I've been doing this for a decade now, and so I have literally studied every single snap of Josh Allen's career. And what I can tell you is his ability to process in real time now is light years beyond where it was when he began. And it's even well past where he was even a season ago before Ken Dorsey was let go. The way that he approaches any sort of defense, like early in his career, it would be, okay, the blitz is going to get him. And I remember the Ravens game where they sent a bunch of cover zeros at him and he just absolutely crumbled from that point forward. And he fixed it. And then moving forward, it was zone that kind of gave him a little bit more trouble. And then he started to find ways to do that and attack teams down the field. Teams tried man-to-man with him. And then the Dolphins learned the hard way that man-to-man does not work against Josh Allen. And then last year, it seemed like teams started to figure out a way to attack him because Josh Allen, for the most part in his career, has been mostly impatient with trying to take shots down the field and make stuff happen. And so that's what, with the proliferation of the cover two shell phenomenon throughout the NFL, that was a major approach used against him, and he was not doing well against it early on last year. But he fixed that later stages of last year, definitely early on in this year. And now it's to the point where anytime you see him processing, he's like, okay, if you're going to sit at that level on the defense, I'm just going to take underneath and I'm going to frustrate you up until the point where you start to creep up, and that's when I'm going to hit you over the top. So these are the type of shots that I'm talking about, where he is taking these checkdowns and all this stuff, but also prying open the defense for a later opportunity. Like there was a honey hole shot to Mac Hollins on the sideline on a 2nd and 16 that got a first down right away. And later on in the game, being able to make people miss in the backfield, and although staying patient and keeping his eyes down the field. Most times he would have tucked it and ran. This time at the end of the half, he just, casually launched it down to Mac Hollins with finesse and everything along those lines, and he brings it in for a 44-yard catch, sets him up for a field goal at the end of the half. So it's just that type of stuff where he's not making mistakes by trying to force the issue. And that was his biggest detriment of what he was as a player to this point. So if that's gone, I mean, you're talking about processing, arm strength, velocity of the throws, accuracy, mobility, like what? And if he's able to attack every single defense, then what do you do to defend this guy is the big issue. And the biggest thing that teams have tried to do is use his receivers against him. And now he's starting to graduate from that.
Where is he learning this growth from, though, right? Let's give him the credit. He's probably doing the studying and the discipline of this growth process. But who do you think he's leaning on the most in helping him develop and take this next, which sounds like a pretty significant step in his career? Yeah,
he's definitely a big self-study guy. I remember talking with him in 2019. There was this one game against the Patriots where they just absolutely frustrated him, confused him. It was like a multi-pick game, maybe 3 or 4 picks. And he looked at that game as the time to look in the mirror. And that was the year in 2019 where he really took his first step forward. And so from there, it's just he's very hard on himself. And he goes and tries to work with every single person he can within the locker room, in the coaching staff. Him and Joe Brady have a great rapport. Brian Daboll deserves a ton of credit for what Josh Allen has become to this point in his career. And certainly Brady has helped unlock him a little bit more to get him out of the doldrums against the cover 2 shell and really hammer it home. And even Sean McDermott too. I mean, to a certain degree, where McDermott throughout his entire career has been, hey, don't be afraid to take the small stuff. Don't be afraid to throw the ball away if it's not there. Don't be afraid to slide to avoid a big hit. These are all issues that he had earlier in his career, and they're just not there anymore. So a lot of people deserve a lot of credit, but I think Josh deserves most of all.
Well, there's a big test this weekend against Kansas City, and there's obviously a million reasons why we want to pay attention to this outside of just, the competition between these two teams that have gone up against each other, and every game appears to have been just, an exciting one. But you've got the Josh Allen versus Patrick Mahomes situation, but then also you've got the bigger picture situation of if they can knock off Kansas City, they can maybe get a first, a 1 seed and bring it home to Buffalo for the playoffs. So there was actually a lot more at stake than just the basic surface stuff here. What do you think you're going to learn about this team, though, as they go up against a really good Steve Spagnuolo defense on Sunday?
Well, my favorite piece of this whole puzzle is that they have never beat Patrick Mahomes in Buffalo, which is certainly something, and that includes the playoff loss last year. So they had their shot at the Chiefs in Buffalo last year in the playoffs, and they lost. Point blank period. And so that is something that I'm sure will be sticking in the back of their minds. So very basically rudimentary. It's, can they beat Patrick Mahomes in their home barn? They're great against Mahomes in the regular season at Arrowhead for whatever reason, but for some reason they just haven't been able to do it in Buffalo. So that's number one, quite obviously, because if they can conquer that villain, then I think you can start to look at them and say, okay, this might be a legitimate Super Bowl contender here. But until they start to prove that they can beat the Chiefs consistently everywhere and at any time of the season, then that will ring hollow. But in terms of schematic standpoint and what we learn about the team, will Allen continue on with this? What he has done to get himself to playing the best football of his career in a big spot in a game like this one, because we're not that far removed from the Texans game where they didn't have Khalil Shakir and they didn't have anyone at receiver. And Josh Allen went 9 of 30 in that game because he was trying to force the issue a little bit too much, and the Texans were trying to blitz him. So can he conquer Steve Spagnuolo, who is really done a nice job against him, but Allen still has put up good stats.
Sean McDermott, if something's going to keep him up the night before about his defense facing the Kansas City Chiefs offense, what do you think is going to be stressing him out headed into this game about the defense specifically? Is there an area?
Yeah, I think the run defense is my guess. And then if the Chiefs start to have some success with their run defense, because as good as the Bills have played, above their level of who they have on their roster right now, the defensive tackle spot is a little bit worrisome because once you take Daquan Jones and Ed Oliver off the field because they rotate their guys, then you have Austin Johnson or Jordan Phillips or Quentin Jefferson or Eli Nku, and it hasn't been a good situation for run defense. They've struggled to get off blocks at times. That was a big emphasis last week. What their defensive coordinator, Bobby Babbage, called my new favorite term, block destruction techniques. They need to be able to do that. And if they're unable and need their safeties to kind of creep down a little bit, and their safeties are their biggest concern of their defense by far, then does this create a window for Xavier Worthy to finally get one deep against the Bills? And the other part of this too, and they have allowed a pretty hefty amount of explosive plays this year. And that's not something that the Chiefs have necessarily done so far this season. They've been mostly like hemmed in. So I do want to see what kind of wins at that capacity. Is it the Chiefs with getting their explosive plays or the Bills preventing those explosive plays?
Correct. And obviously the addition of DeAndre Hopkins makes this a much bigger challenge because even though we've already seen like some explosion from DeAndre and how he's already helped, even just the production with Travis Kelce, with him being another option there. I think this is a kind of game where we can see not unfiltered, untapped, but this is where we can see DeAndre Hopkins. They really lean into that explosiveness if they know that the Bills are struggling. So we had Josh Allen on Scoop City in the summer. He's easily one of the most fun quarterbacks because usually when quarterbacks are fun, they're usually not that good. But you have like one of the best quarterbacks in football, and he's also awesome to talk to and hang out with, and he doesn't take himself too seriously. And we were talking about his wide receiver group, and he was just talking about Keon Coleman and just how like funny he is. Just every day he's just doing something that makes him laugh, and there's obviously like a youthfulness there. But Mac Hollins is another one that has emerged as just like a goofball. I follow him on TikTok. He does these science experiments. What have you seen from Hollins in terms of his personality that's like, wait, this guy's funny?
Well, there was a big right when they signed him, his press conference was mostly about his theories. The barefoot thing, he walks barefoot everywhere. He started doing that a number of years ago when he had an injury, and then he spoke with someone that said, hey, walking barefoot is actually very good to help strengthen the muscles that you are injuring at a pretty consistent rate. He also does not eat soup, I believe, is one. There's something about cats too. I can't remember. there's just a lot of things. He doesn't take an elevators because he would rather take the stairs. Doesn't want to. I think the term was, my body is not going to lift myself up however many stories, so I would like to do it myself. Yeah, I think there's something about not liking cats or something along those lines. So he's got his things, he's got his theories, and I guess it's sometimes comedic relief, but also it's kind of a cult of personality thing because there's a lot of guys walking around barefoot these days in Orchard Park.
Wow. Yeah. Look, I think that's a different type of Bills team than we've seen in years past in terms of that type of personality. Like even with Diggs there, Diggs has got tons of life to him and energy, and he's just a magnetic human being, but he was never really goofy or funny, right? So to just have this all...
It depended on the day, honestly. I will say from covering him. It depended on the day.
I know that's a question I do get a lot from talking to people around the league as well, is like, how is Buffalo different now that Diggs isn't there in terms of what their personality is? Have you sensed any change in Buffalo since? And this isn't like a shot at Stefan. This is just, do you sometimes, breakups are good for everybody. And he was, before his injury, he was so happy to be in Houston too, for his own personal reasons as well, and professional ones. Do you sense anything different with this team?
Yes and no. I mean, Stefan is a big personality, and there's no doubt. I mean, he is extremely hardworking. He is, he expects the most out of himself. He expects the most out of everybody in the building, because he quite honestly, he just wants to win really, really badly. Yeah. But he's also got, like I alluded to, he also has a goofy side. And, there was a lot of people, and you said it yourself, there was a lot of people in the locker room that just gravitated toward him. And I still think he's got a lot of really good friends inside the building. So it is different, because you don't have that type of person in the wide receiver room anymore, because they replaced Diggs with Keon Coleman, who's kind of a goof, Matt Collins, who has his theories, but still he's a little bit magnetic in the same way that Stefan Diggs is. And Khalil Shakir drives a Subaru, so that's all you need to know about Khalil Shakir.
I just love all the different personalities on this team. Yep. Speaking of personality, before I let you go, obviously everyone associates this Bills team, and God knows Kansas City's gonna be ready for it. Just the fandom, the Bills Mafia. Because you've been covering the team for 15 years, I could see a world where you just kind of get accustomed and used to, almost even immune to the craziness and the passion of these fans. Have you seen anything this season or in the last few months that even shocked you? Like, man, these people really love their Buffalo Bills. Any funny signs? Any over-the-top stuff that you've observed? I know your vantage point from the press box, you can't really see everything from I know even when I've been in there, you can see just like the people in front of you, but any takeaways lately? It's
been a bit more muted recently, but I'm sure, when they were really good. And
what's going on?
No, I'm saying in terms of like, it used to be every single week someone is jumping through a flaming table. And I haven't seen as much of that. That does not mean it's still not happening, but it's also becoming more commonplace now, to where, okay, maybe the novelty of it is wearing off a little bit. But there was also a big thing last year where when they were building the stadium, and there was a giant, they called it the pit, the hole where the stadium was being is now being built. There was an emphasis of people just to go to the pit for a while, and it created some weird stuff. But yes, they have not lost their crazy. They have not lost their fastball. I get there wicked early to avoid a lot of it, but yes, you go around the parking lots and you are bound to see things that you would really only see on college campuses, is the best way I would put it.
I don't know, Joe. Here's what I heard from that. Your move, Bills Mafia. Your move.
I'm not challenging them. I think they do a tremendous job. I think they are very well versed. They're very
misunderstood.
Verbal.
They are.
Oh yeah, sure.
I used to get sent up there, and ESPN would send me like security, and I'd be like, I don't need security. They're the nicest people. They're just loud, crazy, and always attempting to get me hammered, despite the fact that I was working on live television. So
that's a fair point. Yes,
the effort was always made, and that's why they're great people. So, Joe, you are also a great person. Thank you so much for hanging out with us here on Scoop City, and I'm sure we will have you on again come the playoffs.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning into Scoop City. If you want to hear more, make sure you like and subscribe. We drop our new episodes every Tuesday and Friday.